thought I was just about done doing dirty work on this car for our engine rebuild, but turns out there's even more. In one of my recent videos, you guys have seen me pull the engine out of this car, disassemble it with the help of some friends. We've also repainted and cleaned every single little component of the engine and the engine bay. And well, we've got some more dirty work to do today, and that is replacing all of the axle boots, the axle clamps, also putting new grease in them, cleaning them out, new clips, all of that. We've also got to do new power steering boots because the power steering boots are completely shot and destroyed, as well as a couple other little things. So without further ado, let's get into it. Next, we're going to tackle our CV joint boot. So I have new boots for both of them. These also come with new circlips, grease, clamps. This one on the passenger side has a crack in it somewhere because it was kind of flinging a small amount of grease onto the downpipe every so often. It was kind of staining the downpipe. And then this one right here, you can see is just old. So we've got 4 new boots for the 2 new axles. Let's get to it.
Guilty self-affliction. Prey on me when I'm lonely. But now you're a willing victim. My friends already told me, but I don't wanna listen. 'Cause I love the way you hold me. And I don't need a reason. 'Cause I don't wanna be.
I've got some of the grease cleaned out, and you can barely just see the circlip right there, the 2 little tips of it. So we essentially need to stick some circlip, I guess, pliers in there. You can kind of see how it works. We're going to expand that circlip, and then this whole end should be able to slide off. Struggled with this for quite a bit. What I ended up having to do is put this on the ground, put my foot on the shaft so I could get some leverage on it, expand the circlip with one hand, and then yank this off with the other hand, and I eventually got it. So there's kind of a better view of that circlip in there. Next, we're going to get this all cleaned out so we can put our fresh grease in. But from what I can see, at least, it looks fairly clean. With this cleaned out, let's put our new grease in and then slide it back on with our new boot and clamps. I have to say, I am very frustrated with myself. I thought, and according to the Bentley manual, you need to expand the circlip and then slide it on. I tried that for at least 45 minutes. It's just such a small surface area to try and grip, even with these pliers. It just wasn't possible. I tried to just slip it on, and it just slid straight on. So I didn't get it on video, but wow, that's kind of frustrating, honestly. But at least it's on. And I heard it clip into place, so yeah, it's not going anywhere. I'm gonna put some more grease in here now that it's on. I'm not gonna like fill the boot with grease by any means, but I at least wanna get some more in there. Make sure we get all the air out of this. Our new axle boots came with these weird looking clamps, so I had to order a special CV clamp tool. We're gonna be using that to install this. We need to slide the excess through the tool, and we're going to wrap it around like this. Once we see that our clamp is starting to get tight, we want to make sure it's lined up with where we want it. And once it gets tight, again, not too tight, we don't want to rip the rubber here. We'll fold it over and pull on this to cut it. Hammering this down, and it goes into place. And that is one side done. Let's get to work on the other side, and you can see this boot's got a tear in it, so definitely a good thing I'm replacing it. Getting this off was quite a pain. When I do the other axle, and if you're doing this job, I'd recommend not touching this. Just leave it on here, pull everything off this side, and you can slide the new boot on this side without having to take this tripod off, because this was really hard. I admittedly had to hammer a bit, which I didn't feel good about, but it looks like it's all fine. Everything's in good shape. So we can slide our new boot on with our new clamps, grease it up, and then we'll slide the tripod back on. Little idea I used to help hammer this back on was I put a socket around the tripods, that way I wouldn't have to hit on these, and it was just big enough to fit around the actual axle itself, so it worked out pretty well, although now I have a very greasy socket. Right here is our new circlip, so we'll install this now. There we go. That actually wasn't too bad. Last and certainly not least is our clamp. So they gave me two of these exact same style clamps for this one. Since this side goes into the transmission, it's just gonna be easier to use the old clamp that was on there, because this is an actual like worm clamp that I'll be able to put a socket on and tighten. So I'm gonna stick with this one for this side. And there we go. There's some new boots on our axles. I'm gonna wait to fill this up the rest of the way because I need to use some of that grease in the actual input on the transmission. So that's plenty of grease for now. Let's do the same with the driver's side. Like I suspected and hypothesized, sure enough, it was much easier to just pop off the outer CV joint and leave the tripod on the transmission side. In doing that, I was able to put the transmission side boot on, and then obviously, right after that, put the output shaft side on as well with our new clamps. And just like that, the driver's side axle is done. Probably took me about a third the amount of time. All I did on this side was obviously replace the grease and then also install a new snap ring. So yeah, let's move on to the next job. I was doing an inspection on the vacuum lines here. I replaced probably about half of them last year. The ones that I can get to, I also just replaced now. This one, however, this will be our little secret if you're still watching the video. This one here, you might notice, is really tucked up in here tightly on these little metal brackets. And because the new vacuum line I have, the inner diameter is the same, but the outer diameter is much larger. So I couldn't run that new vacuum line the whole way through there, so I just did a little bit of undercover work here, and we're just gonna pretend that's not there, and I actually ran vacuum line the whole way through. But as soon as I touched this one, this old line, it just kind of snapped apart. Let's get the boots on the power steering rack replaced. If you can't see why we're doing it now, you will see why in a minute, because these are really bad. Well, that gave me absolutely no problems. I think these have been replaced fairly recently. They don't look brand new, but if they were 35 years old, they'd definitely be in worse shape. And I was really worried that these were going to be a pain to snap out of there. The alignment in this car already isn't perfect, but I'm gonna mark this locking nut and the tie rod end to make sure that it at least goes on in the same spot it came off. 1, 2, 3,
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, so about 13 and a half.
An odd little clamp that they used for that. Here you can see why we're replacing this. The boot is in 2 different pieces. Now we'll have to go into the engine bay and take off the other side of it. This side down in here came free pretty easily. It looks like it's just a zip tie that's on there. So I just cut that. You're now looking at the ball joint that's directly under that boot, and you can see just all of the crud that's in there from that boot being broken. So I'm gonna take a little bit of brake clean to this and some time to get this all cleaned out and make sure it's good to go back in. So this area back in here isn't perfectly clean, but well, you can tell I got quite a lot of crud out of there. Most importantly though, our boot in here, or I should say our ball joint, is about as clean as it's gonna get with the tools and ability I have. It's not 100% perfect. You can see there's just a little bit of crud still back in there, but it should still be miles better than it was before. So let's put some grease on that. We're gonna rub it around, make sure some grease gets inside that ball joint, and then we can install our new boot. Here's our new boot versus the old one. You can see, well, for one, it's in one piece, but this is just how bad the other one was. I mean, it just completely separated. The other side is the same way. They don't give you new clamps with this. This one's broken. This one used a zip tie before. From what I'm reading online, it seems like a lot of people just use zip ties for these. So we're gonna use zip ties. Let's get it installed. I'm gonna put it on the other end of the steering rack and tighten that zip tie down and cut the excess. And we'll do the same for this side. Let's put our tie rod back on. Just 1, 2,
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13.
Might be hard to tell, but our 2 lines are just about perfect. With this side done, I'm going to go do the driver side next. The driver boot was actually in much better shape. It wasn't ripped until I pulled it off. There were a couple of cracks in there and it still definitely needed to be replaced, but it wasn't nearly as bad. So this one's all good. You can see lined up. Replaced. I cleaned out that hole again where the rack runs through, and yeah, there's just so much crud in there. And I found a free nut. Another productive video, getting a lot of little things done on this car as we prepare for the engine to go back together and back in. Thank you all so much for watching. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next one.